Thank you. Mr. Ingram?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda adoption, additions, deletions, changes. Chair will entertain a motion. So move. All in favor, aye? Aye. Consent agenda. Questions, comments? Chair will entertain a motion to adopt.
So moved.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, likewise, motion carries. Item 6, Mr. Fadden.
Okay. Item 6 is Braewick Sewer Rehab Project. The project is ready to go out to bid. We have reported earlier this evening on it. The project is $2.6 million, 100% from grant funding. The project, we hope to have the construction advertisement started shortly with the bid opening, and our engineer did share with you that if we only have less than 3 bids, they won't be open or re-advertised again. But once the process gets going, it's a 9-month construction project. This project is a little bit unique because the contractor is bidding 2 areas. One is they're going to camera the lines to find out how bad they are, which ones they can do pipe bursting on, which will have to be dig and replaced. And then also, once they get that known, the bidders will give us quantities and the cost of manholes, various pipe per foot cost, and so they'll be able to pick the winning bid on this. But the state has approved the advertisement to proceed. The plant specs have been approved. So that before you is to authorize the consulting engineer to work with the town to advertise for construction bids.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, likewise, motion carries. Number 7, Jim.
I got an email from the Department of Environmental Quality that the town had a number of fines that were not never paid. They totaled $19,475. They occurred between the periods June 15, 2020 to July 15, 2022. There's no additional penalties added on to it. But one of the things too, on Braewick Sewer, for example, all the notice of violation when you have a sewer system overflow, although you hate to see it happen, it tells you that the system is aging and needs replaced, and you get points for it on your grant application. And so there were several sewer overflows in the Braewick Sewer area, and these are all, they should have been paid earlier, but they haven't. So the recommendation is that there's a budget amendment later on in the agenda, but I need, board authority to make the payment and bring us up to current standards. But you did get scoring on the grants because of these NOVs. The fines aren't that big, but there's several of them that we've had. And so I need permission from you guys to make the payment of $19,475 to Dieter on the fines.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor, aye? Opposed, likewise, motion carries. Item 8, budget.
Okay. I came here January 13th and to be our interim manager, and later I mentioned talking to the mayor that there are several areas that need attention, and so I agreed to stay on longer, including, Mayor, you asked me to work on the budget and so forth. So I've been working with the community, and one thing too, since you're manager, I've been receiving a lot of complaints on various things. But the good thing is, a lot of the people that complain come in and thank the town for getting things rectified. But the budget before this evening totals $5.7 million. And I've got a PowerPoint I handed out to the audience as well. I'm not going to go through page by page, but 88% of the budget funds operation and maintenance, all the budgets. 6% is capital equipment, some new items. The police department, for example, last year you guys approved 2 patrol cars. They have not come in yet, so we got to rebudget $112,000 for that. We're also looking at replacing a sidearm mower and one of the dump trucks, and we'll go in detail at your work session May 26th. This transfer is totaling $38,000, about 1% of the budget. Appropriating fund balance about 5% to all the budgets. That's on the revenue side. The expenditure side, again, is $5.7 million. It's a balanced budget. Again, 86% of the expenditures is for operations and maintenance. Your total debt is $377,000, but your general fund debt is only $16,000. It's really low. And that's in the police department. Water and sewer's got most of the debt, $307,000. And on the water and sewer side, I have been working with House Member Jake Johnson. He's working to try to get a forgiveness of the loan that Saluda, Columbus, and Tryon had. It helps to accomplish that this year's budget appropriation. The sanitation fund's got a loan for a garbage truck that was approved a couple years ago. That's $12,000. And the fire department, they don't have any debt this year. However, one of the things, they have a, fire chief mentioned they have a truck they're replacing. It's due to come in FY25. So rather than have the debt go to zero, the chief and I recommended to the county that we have 40,000 reserved for debt, so you won't have that big spike. And then capital outlay, the equipment purchases, that's pretty much the overall funds combined. Now, as far as the budget highlights go, this is where I want to get in, and I felt like I'm an operational auditor looking at this town, where we need to head. And the comments you guys have all made have helped us put the budget together. Because I know, Chris, you made a comment that this town's been so reactive, not being proactive. And I've walked around the town and seen some of the facilities, and the community has seen them too. And I guess one of the things is, there's 5 areas: employee retention, recruitment, equipment replacement, maintaining the town assets, facilities planning, where we're going from here, and the water and sewer rehab, which is a major expense. One of the things that this town is blessed with is you have several employees here that have been here several years. And when the mayor and I met with his Ravenel at a meeting last week about Prairie Sewer, the 3 individuals that they brought to the meeting, one was here 3 months, one was here 1.5 years, and the other individual was 3 years. On our side of the equation, the mayor, you've been mayor for 23 years, like that? 20? It's like 20. Anyway, you had Gary Walker. I asked him to come to the meeting, 34 years. He's only retired. He's going to work for the town and help us on this project. Andrew McAllister's 23 years. Greg McCool, 21 years. And I've been doing management and finance for over 40 years. And so the experience in that discussion was all on the town side. And so that's going to be a big asset to help get a project done of this magnitude. Also, when I looked when the mayor called me up coming back to this town, I went on the website and noticed the last pay plan showed 2014. And you know, the cost of living has gone up tremendously the last 2 years. You've got a lot of employees. I'm surprised that they continue to stay here with opportunities to leave, they go elsewhere. But a lot of people, one thing that shows about the town is a number of employees have retired from this town, which says a lot about working for a community that they enjoy working. And so part of the recommendation is to overhaul the pay plan, which I've done in-house rather than hiring consultants. So that's the recommendation. Also, I shared with you that I'd like to reestablish a safety program for the employees. It was here years ago, but it was abolished after I left. I think it's important that we do that again. And one thing I just want to share, we had rented picnic shelter out of Harmon Field a week and a half ago. And one of the patrons who rented it noticed there was a step up or a broken concrete crack. And they tripped and fell, didn't get really hurt, but they brought it to my attention. I shared it with Greg McCool, and then in a matter of a couple of days, we went out and got it fixed, so we won't have that. So it's important that we stay on top of our facilities when they make. The secondary equipment replacement, this town has fallen way behind on equipment, but I'm not coming before you this evening to recommend replacing all equipment. I think it's going to be over a 3 or 4 year plan to do that. We'll just address the most important items right now in this year's budget. The third area I mentioned a little bit is maintaining town assets. It's sad to see when you go down to Rogers Park, for example, the pergola is falling apart. And it's an embarrassment to the community and people that come here. We have the concert series starting up again. The picnic tables are worked and that type of thing. So Greg McCool, our public works director, has retained a contractor to get that fixed now, not wait after July 1st, but start now. Also, too, has brought to my attention, like the lights at the clock tower have been out for years. We retained an electrician who came out, they're all working now. Yes, it costs money, but I think it costs more when you don't do it when it's broken. But there's several things throughout the area. One of the things that the street lights, as you mentioned to me in my first meeting, Greg was out with the contractor, they got those fixed. We want to get the ones that are missing addressed. One of the things I like to see done is the street crews to do a lot more pressure washing. It does make a difference if people come into town, and like the sidewalks in front of Rogers Park could be pressure washed from here down to the corner and so forth. One of the projects that has been really total shock to me has been the deterioration of some of the facilities in Harmon Field. And I realized that the Harmon Field Advisory Board, Board of Commissioners, there's been no tax increase over there in years. It's a lot of things have fallen behind. I went to the Tryon Middle School a few weeks ago. The roof was caved in, water got into the building. And then I've been working with a nonprofit out of New York who was here on Monday. I was working on a long-term lease with them. And after the last rain we had, the building is even worse shape than it was 2 weeks ago, and they basically have walked away from the deal, that they felt it was too much of an expense. But I think it's an opportunity. I think, Mayor, I've always shared with you that when you have a negative, it's an opportunity. That building could be a great community center. We can work on maybe getting grants and so forth. So I agree with the Polk County Community Foundations, others, to talk about getting that building, because the foundation and the walls are still in good shape, but the roof and the ceiling are in really bad shape. As far as facilities management, we've always talked about moving things like Public Works Garage. Unless you write it down, it doesn't happen. So there's 3 areas I'd like to see us look at this year. The first one is relocate the Public Works Garage out of downtown and move it to the sewer plant. I got some good news on the floodplain. That is an area that's plenty room to put a public works facility down there. And then open up an opportunity to have something nicer in the downtown area rather than having the eyesore at Public Works Garage. The second thing is looking at the fire station needs and growth. On one hand, I had a dream of maybe having a new fire station down in Harmon Field, but that cost would be $4 to $5 million. I think for $1 million or less, we can look at adding on to the existing station here and make it work. And that's feasible, finding the money to pay for that. The third item is the renovation of the former Tryon Middle School. That if we make a community center and seek grant money, that's not the way to go. But I think I'd like to start the planning process for those 3 endeavors at a minimum. The water and sewer system, like I mentioned earlier, was built in the 1920s and 30s. The sewer plant was built in 1969, and that was before the National Clean Water Grant Program, 92,500. And also was built before OSHA was even invented. Again, 100% local money, and we need to be more aggressive on seeking more water infrastructure grants. We did approve tonight a $2.6 million Frederick Sewer Rehab project. A couple weeks ago, another consultant we retained, in less than a week's time, Summit Engineering and Greg McCool and Andrew McAllister and I worked on putting a grant application for water system improvement. It's 1.2 million. It's going to be Starwood Ridge, US 176 North Trade Street. There's no guarantee you get grants, but unless you ask, you don't get. So we turn that in. Also, too, I want to share with you that our citizens have complained to our Congressman Chuck Edwards, our state senator Tim Moffitt, House member Jake Johnson, on a number of areas where sewer system overflows, areas like Markham Road and Grady Avenue, Hidden Hill and Oak Street. All three of those projects we shared with the House member Jake Johnson and Tim Moffitt. Tim Moffitt sent an email yesterday that he is going to include all three of those in the budget. If we get those, that money will come to the town sooner than later, because you won't have to wait for the process of the state staff going through all this claims protection grant award. Also, too, we got approval for asset inventory of our mapping of water and sewer. And I mentioned that Gary Walker, who's retired, has agreed to not only help them pinpoint locations of things they can't find, he's also going to review their drafts of the mapping as it comes through, to make sure it's correct. And thirdly, I'm going to ask him to review invoices, because I don't want us to repay more than they've earned at that point. So I think Gary's going to be a big asset along with Andrew on that. Then the last area of infrastructure is, I did go through your dam assessment report for Lake Lanier. The town spent a lot of money on that report. I've asked that engineer to come up to Tryon in the first week in June to meet with the Army Corps of Engineers, South Carolina DHEC, and representatives of Congressman Chuck Edwards' office as we pursue opportunities for rehabbing Lake Lanier Dam. So those are the 5 areas that in the short time I've been here, employee retention is very important. Recruitment's been getting tougher and tougher, and so the pay plan is vital. The equipment replacement, you keep using old equipment, it does affect employee morale. Maintaining town assets, we need to be proactive and not let things deteriorate, and start planning for our future facilities, and then water sewer rehab program can be ongoing. I went over the all fund summary. Now we get to the general fund, which is
Just a point of information. 3 years ago, this board approved to rebuild the Rogers Park Road.
that's what happened.
Fell through the cracks.
Okay, one of the things that you mentioned, you fall through the cracks, I call it the black hole. And one of the things too, I've challenged the employees here at the town and people in the community that if something comes to my attention, and don't hesitate to remind me, like where it's in the black hole, if you haven't got to it yet or whatever, but I think we need to stay on top of it for accountability.
Well, I agree with you. They're shameful that it's been allowed to deteriorate like that. Tryon deserves better.
And getting into the budget discussion, the town's got budgets in the called governmental funds, enterprise funds, special revenue fund, and the component unit. But the governmental funds that are in the budget, I've got 10 budgets presented this year. Last year, you had 7. And not that I invented 3 new ones, but I'll tell you why. The general fund's the first one that goes through, and I went through and listed all the tax rates in FY 2012 to 2023. And really, this town, I don't know how it's operated without raising taxes. And so my proposal this year, which will go 2 weeks from now when we have our budget discussion, this is strictly the manager's presentation. There'll be plenty of time for questions and answers of me and the department heads. But I'm recommending a 5-cent tax increase to address these areas I just discussed. Also, too, I noticed that when I was here the first time, I guess town manager 1.0, I guess I'm town manager 2.0 now. There was a police pension fund I set up. And that was to pay for the police separation allowance when police officers retire from this town. Unfortunately, there's been no deposits in the account since I left. But the police separation allowance is put in by the state legislature years ago, that when a police officer retires after 25 years of service, they get a supplemental retirement up to age 62. And that's when Social Security kicks in early, so it's whatever. And so the obligation next year for 2 of our police chief that retired and another officer is $28,100. So I'm recommending that the pension fund be transferred, close it out, and cover that expense for this year. And then in subsequent years, it's going to be pay as you go. If you had put money away a little bit each year, we wouldn't be talking about this at all. The Culture and Recreation Department covers Woodland Park and Rogers Park. Their budget last year wasn't even adopted by this board. And you were written up by the auditors for spending money without a budget. We've amended the budget already this year, so you won't have that violation. But I'm recommending that we put $10,000 in that budget. If you have a Parks Committee that really wants to do some great things for this community, and so I think $10,000 to help them deal with Woodland Park and Rogers Park will take care of the pergola between now and June 30th. But give them some money to make some improvements that are badly needed. Now the enterprise fund, there's 3 of them. There's water and sewer fund, and then another one, which was not adopted last year, is called the water meter fund. At my first meeting, January 13th, several members on the council, including citizens, asked for whatever happened to the water meter fund. Well, it's being reestablished this year. And I'm pleased to report that there's $135,000 in the water meter fund left when I was here 15 years ago. It's been earning interest all this time. The auditors have taken that amount and put it to the water and sewer fund balance as combined. I'm recommending separating that, and then all the money for meter fees go into that fund and replace in meters as we need them and so forth. And then the third one is sanitation fund. On the water and sewer fund, you retain Withers Ravenel and prepare a capital improvement plan showing infrastructure needed throughout the community. And they recommend a 5% rate increase each year for the next several years to address the CIP. So that's in the budget recommendation. And the water meter fund recommend the meter fee stay the same, it's just that the meter fee revenue go to the meter fund to add to the current fund balance of $134.5. The sanitation fund, the auditors noticed up for several years, I noticed that the sanitation fund was losing money, and you had to subsidize it 1 year with a transfer. One of the things that I noticed when I pulled the off the hood, so to speak, is that we were budgeting or charging the sanitation fund for 2 days a week pickup, and that was stopped years ago. So 40% of the expenditures should have been in the street department. And so we've got that fixed. And then I've been working with the county, and the county mentioned that they're going to be increasing tipping fees this year. From $55 to $65. about 11% increase. So I'm recommending a $1 per month increase in sanitation from $23 a month to $24 a month. And that'll keep us in the black. So this year's audit will be much favorable for the audit year ending June 30th of 23. Then next year we should be in good shape. But the sanitation fund is moving from being in the red to where it should be. Special revenue funds, we have two of them. The Harmon Field Fund and the County Fire Department Fund. The Harmon Field Fund, their budget's already been approved by the town as well as the fire department one, because they've already gone to the county. The Harmon Field one, we're waiting for, if we get the support for them on paving the access roads and the parking lots. This town board here approved the request to put up $68,650 toward that. And so waiting for the county, hopefully say yes. There was no tax increase in Harmon Field, although next year, March 5th, and said he'd work with us to support a tax increase next year. So if we get the paving money done this year, I'd like to get it done as soon as possible. The Tryon Fire Department went to the Foothills Fire and Rescue Group. They recommended a 1 cent tax increase, is what the fire chief and I had asked for. It primarily funds a third firefighter or second firefighter for the C shift. That will give us 2 firefighters on each shift, plus the fire chief, total of 7. And also 2, we asked them to do not lower the budget because of debt flow to zero, but set aside $40,000 as a reserve for that. And then the final budget is a tourism budget. It's a component unit of the town. Their last year the budget was like $35,000, but this one is dropped in occupancy tax revenue. So it's roughly $28,000, and I appropriated $2,500 for the EV charging station, which is being shared equally between tourism, TDA, and the town. But the final slide I've got is public hearing will be June 20th at 7 p.m. I've got 2 workshops scheduled, one May 26th, which is the Friday Memorial Day weekend. I thought we meet from 9 a.m. to like 2 p.m. at the depot. And then if necessary, meet the following Friday from 9 a.m. to 2 if necessary to go through all the budget. But the format I'd like to do this year is to have the mayor and the town board and commissioners sit around a table with myself, your department heads, and all the division supervisors. One, you're going to see a lot of years' experience, and I want you guys to ask questions, even non-monetary questions, because this budget before you is budget of everybody, our citizens, the town board, and the employees that work for you. But that's my presentation for this evening, and Mayor, just this budget discussion will be continued over to May 26th. The public hearing will be set. The agenda has 3 items. Recommendation to set public hearing for the 24 budget for June 20th at 7 p.m. and approve a budget work session for May 26th. And if necessary, to June 2nd. That's the recommendation this evening.
Motion. All in favor, aye. Opposed, likewise, motion carries. Those 3 dates are set. Thank you. Jim, item 9, number 7.
Okay. Okay, this is, we talked about earlier on the fines. Basically, this budget amendment does a couple things. One, allows fund balance to be appropriated to pay the fines of $19,475. And also 2, the auditors noticed in last year that the town had made some budgetary mistakes, and we fixed them already. One of them was that they don't want you to have line item increase in fund balance. For example, let's say you have tourism budget of $35,000, and you only have 10,000 worth of identified expenses, they don't want you to write a decrease in fund balance, 25,000. They just want you to show expenditures of 35,000. So we had a line item called 10,660, increase in fund balance. We're moving that up into another line item, and that'll get rid of that violation, but that's pretty much it. It's just clean up those two line items. Just doesn't increase the budget at all, just moves it up to another line item. 19,475 to cover the fines.
Carolyn, entertain a motion to adopt amendment number 7. All in favor, aye. Opposed, likewise, motion carries. Item 10, pickleball.
So we got a number of people here from pickleball. They'd like to, this is one of those things where it's always fun recommendation as manager, because you've got a number of citizens willing to go out and raise money to pay for a very popular sport that's expanding. But unfortunately, in most communities, pickleball courts, they're hard to find, and there's not enough of them. And the Harmon Field Board met, and they like to amend their master plan to allow for the construction of pickleball courts divided at Twine Middle School, that grass area over there. And they want to do the legwork and then retain a grant writer. But the grants, of course, have to come to the town board for approval to make application. So at this time, I guess, Mayor, you want to call upon Luke Harkey to talk about.
Who's the speaker?
Yes.
Hey, you are, sir.
Look.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Luke Harkey. I've been serving as the convener for an informal group that we've been calling Pickleball Advisory Committee. And we met with the Harmon Field Board, and they approved establishing us as an ad hoc steering committee to work toward securing grants and community fundraising in support of building some pickleball courts at Harmon Field. But in order to make grant application, we need to have approval from the town to receive monies. There's already an account at Town Hall, but any grant applications would need a signature from the mayor and from the town manager to make that official. And so what we come before you this evening, I've got a list of the members of the committee and the action that was taken by the Harmon Field Board. And we're asking that this committee be authorized to seek foundation grants and community funding for developing pickleball courts at Harmon Field. And that once the project is completed, then the maintenance and oversight will be returned to Travis and to the Harmon Field Board.
Question? Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve or adopt. All in favor, aye. All opposed, likewise, motion carries. You have it, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Go forth and beg. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you all. Number 11.
Item 11 is an item from the tourism. I guess, Bill, do you want to talk about this? You want Michelle?
Yeah, what we did at the last meeting was we did a resolution in support of the Saluda Grade Trail from the tourism. Unanimous vote, and it just, what we're wanting to do is go ahead and get a committee to start looking at today, tomorrow, and 5 years from now. And you want to be chair? Please.
One thing we did, I guess, subsequent to the meeting at tourism.
Could you get in, please? I don't appreciate that.
I don't want to mess
Not
this
my
up.
lease.
I asked Michelle Newman to, I'm always looking at if we get something done in one meeting versus two. So I asked Michelle to put together the names of people, individuals, who could get that committee going. And I guess, Michelle, if you wanted to share that with the group, what group you recommend?
Yes, on the committee, they recommended having, town manager as office chair of TDDA, our town planning director, and then the chairs of the planning committee, the parks committee, the TDDA, and, board, council representative, on there, and then open it up to 2 business or property owners within town and 2 citizens at large to participate in the community.
Okay, have you reviewed that?
Yeah, and then
You're satisfied?
I'm satisfied. I just thought that'd be good to get the committee going, and get people appointed, and rather than wait another meeting, let's do it tonight.
Chair, will you make a motion to adopt the proposal in the list of appointees? All in favor, aye? Opposed likewise, motion carried. Item 12. TDDA. That's the only update you have, Michelle?
Oh, yeah, TDA.
Yes, for PDDA, we recently completed our annual retreat as well as our site visit from NC Main Street. As I shared, we have been fully accredited as a member of NC Main Street. We remain the second smallest in the state, so we're moving forward with that. At our board meeting for PDDA this coming Thursday, we'll be making our plans and our budgets for the coming year. We'll share at the retreat a large portion of it focused on the MSD and what our next steps were to get that moving for Tryon. So we're in the research phase, looking at some of the numbers, what the potential income could be, and then we will come back with recommendations from there and take that to our property and business owners specifically to get their buy-in. So we're moving forward with that. Wanted to share next Wednesday, we have a seminar here in town from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Tryon Depot geared specifically towards digital marketing. So all businesses in Tryon are welcome to attend that. It's led by Gary Heisey, who is a expert on these kind of seminars, making sure all our Tryon businesses are making the most of their digital presence. Following that, on the 26th, fourth Friday for this month, I've asked Jim if he would like to do a meet the manager thing, so Hornswoggle to being out there for meeting the community, if anybody hasn't had a chance to get to know Jim. And then on June 26th, TDDA will have our annual meeting, so more information will be coming out about that. And again, that is open to the public, so everyone is welcome to attend.
Hey, small town Main Street folks, if you want to see what we've done in this small town, when you go through that door, you look at the wall to the right above the red ball, there are about 8 or 9 awards that this little town has gotten since 15 years ago, the first one. I defy any town anywhere close to this size to have that many awards to put up. And it's not us folks, it's you, it's the citizens. We don't win, y'all do. So thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Michelle, I had a chance to Rio to Fourth Friday upcoming.
I'm sorry?
I had a chance to Rio to Fourth Friday upcoming.
Okay, at the St. Luke's Plaza? Excellent,
I'll send you an email.
please, thank you.
Okay, item 13, minimal housing.
Okay, 51 Shepherd Street, I've spoken to Paul Miller, the number Cheryl gave me. I've received permission for inspection, so I'm hoping to do that by the end of the week. And then we'll have a hearing for that one. 136 Cleveland, the owner is starting cleanup next week on it. I am trying my hardest to get his neighbor next door in touch with them or get them connected so he can hop on that cleanup trip. 161 Peak Street, I have a meeting with the owner this Monday to discuss going forward about that demolition of that house. We'll have more details on that. I have contacted Pace and Mitch Contracting for demolition estimates, just to keep this ball rolling. They have the addresses for all the properties, and I'm just waiting for confirmation from them when they can come down or when they can get them to me. I am going to call SBR for a third option, so we have numbers to choose from. Any questions on minimum housing? Okay. We did get the rebate, go ahead for the town EV chargers, electric vehicle chargers. Becker is in the process of ordering the equipment. The rebate, the total cost is gonna be $17,000, but the rebate's for $10,000, so that $7,000 will be split between the town, the tourism, and TBDA. Yes, so as far as the time frame, I'm just waiting on Becker to tell me when he has the equipment. There you go.
Thank you. 14, manager's report.
I just want to take the time and thank the board again and the department heads and division supervisors for helping get the budget done this year. A lot to digest, a lot to go forward, but one of the things too, Mary, you brought up about Main Street. The Main Street program was picked when I was here the first time, and it's nice to see that it's going very strong. I attended a meeting with Sherry Adams from Department of Commerce with Michelle. They gave Triumph very high marks. There's areas for improvement, of course, but she is very proud of what you guys have done all these years of downtown. That's my report. Thank you.
Council Mayor, Bill Groville, Ingram, Chris, and me.
I want to thank all the citizens from coming out and staff. And this day, I really would like you to be on this committee because you've been in this town 40 years now, and you've got a lot of knowledge, and it's okay to have the opposition sitting on the board that way. But that's why I said what I said.
I am not necessarily the opposition.
But anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks for the citizens and the staff.
Yeah, I just want to thank the staff, Jim, thanks for all the hard work, this budget ready and everything. I'd like to thank the rest of the staff. The town was great, and welcome the visitors. Thank you very much for coming.
I'd like to thank the town staff and citizens. You make our work much easier.
Chief, thank you.
Which
You got here 3 years ago, fire chief. You got here 3 years ago?
Yes.
And I had been praying, hoping, and working to get full-time fire department, and this is gonna give us 2 on each shift. We have good people, but I can tell you that people's time is eaten up. We don't get the volunteers like we used to. We have people that step up, and I'm telling you, I sleep very well with these people there. I watch what they do, I watch how often they go out, and there are people that are walking in this town and breathing today because of what we're doing, what he's doing in that fire department over there. And I thank you, my hat's off to you. Citizens, please, if you want to speak, raise your hand. I'm sorry, you had to do it first, Ann.
And
Give me your name, please, always for the record.
And I have a sort of a laundry list of things. There is a sinkhole starting on Broadway in front of 34 Broadway. It's already had some repair work done apparently in the past, but now a sinkhole is forming there. Having trouble reading here. The road is eroding away at the corner of Broadway and New Market as you turn off of New Market onto Broadway on the right side. Been that way for quite some time. There are 2 potholes on Whitney Avenue that have been there for over a year. One is sort of between 170 and 188, and the other one is almost at the intersection of Whitney and 2nd Street, and it is actually around the manhole cover. I believe, if I'm right, the ordinance says that when you come to an intersection, you have to have, there has to be 3 feet so that you can see to turn. Off of Whitney onto Second Street, turning left, you cannot see, you have to pull out in the intersection. I know Jody, when he used to work here, actually went and cut her bushes because she refused to do them. Also, the corner of Broadway and Second Street.
Not my maples.
Your Japanese red maple is growing out in the road, our Japanese red maple is growing out into the road. And you have, once again, you have to pull out into the intersection, to see any of that.
I'll get with the property owner.
Oh, would you? Also, the sidewalk on Whitney Avenue from in front of my dog pen on up to almost the end of the road is still torn up, broken up. 2 or 3 people have fallen. It's been, or it was on Zach's list for now 7 years to be repaired and has not. Also, any word on replacing the fire hydrant on Carson Street that is painted black?
Chief, is that on our list?
What about it? I'm sorry.
The fire hydrant on Carson Street over there at the apartments in it that's painted black.
So in lieu of he's not here, the fire department only does something as far as replacing or repairing.
So it would be
Works.
gray,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Great
And-
piece of paper.
Any progress or thought about replacing the fence on New Market as you go up on the right that I brought up before that's falling down, that we thought a nice wrought iron fence would look nice there?
I think a nice inexpensive
No,
cedar fence would be nice.
no. And also, Michelle's idea of meet the town manager, I think is great. I would recommend you do it with the fire department and the police department as well, so the citizens have a chance to meet those people that protect them day in, day out. I told you I had a laundry list.
Okay.
I finished this round.
But thanks for everything you do.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, hi, I'm Terry Parker, I live on Grady, I'm new to the town, I've only lived here a couple of years. My question, I have a couple of questions about your ordinances for property development. The lot next door to me was sold a few months ago, and they started excavation a couple months ago, removing the trees, moving the dirt out to get ready to build. And I'm just wondering why a site, some type of a site plan wasn't, a checklist or something wasn't instituted prior to them breaking ground, or a land development application. I'm trying to understand these ordinances that you all made, and really, I have to be a genius to figure out because one overlaps another one. Setbacks, but anyway, they started doing this 2 months ago. It is now, and I've been in contact with Tim Daniels. So what I'm trying to find out, who is the zoning administrator, first of all? Who is that?
That's me.
Well,
I'm
okay, so
planning
you're
and
not the planning,
I'm planning and zoning.
okay, you're planning and zoning director. Okay. Because they mention that a lot in the ordinances, that doesn't say planning director, it says zoning administrator. But anyway, they have built a pit that's right up on my property line. In order to make a driveway, they had to go over my easement, which they didn't know about, the owner. Apparently wasn't told that I had an easement. So over the driveway, breaking gas line, breaking sewer line, while they're digging, and digging a huge pit that is right on my property line, and no survey was done prior to the dividing line between the two properties, and they've encroached on my property line. So they've gone about 3 feet over at one part to go. It's a very steep driveway, it's a very steep piece of property, it's right on the hill up here. You
I'll
probably know
go
where it
by and
is.
look at it.
Next to the toy house is my house, and then there were 3 lots. So Wally built 2 lots, and then the middle lot was for sale. Somebody bought it. Now, why wasn't a survey required? I don't know why. It's not law. I know that they don't have to have a survey. But you would think that a builder owner would want to do a survey when it's a dividing line and it's a really pretty narrow piece of property with a very difficult area to put a driveway because it is so narrow. And so Tim, I met with Tim yesterday and we went over there is a zoning, application now for a permit, which he approved part of it. The other part was for a garage. Now, the garage would have been put into the pit, which was right at my property line. So here's a 20-foot pit at my property line that is now on my property. Now, Tim can't approve the garage because of the setbacks, right, Tim?
Yeah, and the owner, he makes it anyway.
Are no good, so no garage. So now we're left with just the pit that anybody coming on my property that were to walk over and maybe lose their balance and fall in could break their neck, and I would be liable. So I would like to know, the way I read the ordinance is that something should have been presented to the planning board prior to any kind of excavation, tree removal. They removed all the dirt, all the trees are gone. And the other thing was the sewer and gas lines being broken. How were they buried correctly? Who fixed the sewer line that was cracked? And so I have questions about that.
It sounds to me like that's a question that needs to work through you. If we violated stuff, then our attorney recommends what we need to do.
Yeah, I talked, first I heard of it, me and Tim can talk about it more.
So you can meet with him tomorrow.
Telephone.
Or can you have her number in case you need
Yes.
to call and ask anything else?
Contact him.
Okay, that's step 1.
Well, yeah, I would like to go over all the ordinances. I'd really like to sit down with somebody and go over them. Because I'm probably gonna have to get an attorney anyway and sue the property owner next door, property owner builder, for encroaching on my property. I did the survey. I had a survey done 10 days ago. And although I don't have it with me, it hasn't come to me yet. What he's told me is, Ty Cantrell, you probably know of him. He's told me that it's probably over about 3 feet. Coming up part of the driveway, not all the way. The rest of it is right on my property line, where you can fall right into the pit. And not only is it, it's gonna bring down my property value. If I was wanting to sell, I couldn't sell it the way it is right now. Plus, it's a safety issue. What if somebody falls in, gets hurt? There's no fence up. They didn't bring the erosion fence all the way up around where it should be and bury it properly. So I'm very concerned about this, and I'm very concerned that my property valuation has gone down.
Is the things that she's asking are all our guidance and everything online?
Yeah, our ordinances,
They're
Yeah.
all online.
everything's online, correct?
Okay. I know that. I knew part of it was up. I wasn't sure we had all of it. So that's at least a start of where you can look at ordinances and then call them. But no, I talked to them and I would really retain an attorney based on what you told me. That would be
Well,
my
yeah,
next
I
step.
plan on doing that. Yeah.
And I'm
that's
sorry,
yours.
because I was gonna say welcome to heaven, but apparently it's not right now.
I used to be a public servant for 20 years. I was in law enforcement. So, you know, your jobs are to protect the citizens and their property. So that's why I'm here, because I'm not happy with the way this is handled. At all.
Understand.
No planning, and I've spoken to people here. Planning board, and everybody refers me to Tim. So Tim does everything. Nobody else has any responsibility.
So you guys will call.
I will talk with her tomorrow, and we'll, as soon as we're done, I'll let her know what we
The
decided.
attorney will speak with him, and then I think that I can assure that you will call her and give her some type of answer or invite you in. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Yes, Dr. Carson.
Good evening. I'm so reluctant to say anything.
That's not the Dr. Carson I know.
And that's my whole point. Why change now? I want to express my extreme displeasure over the condition of Cleveland Road. I have spoken with the mayor, emailed the town manager. This report that we heard from Tim earlier this evening is almost verbatim the same report that we heard at our April Eastside Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. Nothing has happened since then. Those houses were finally burned by the fire department on February 25th. It has been far more than 60 days. And I think that's really enough time to allow residents who have let those ugly houses, owners sit there for the longest kind of time. It is absolutely appalling. If you have not driven through there, you should, because it is embarrassing to the town for us to allow that situation to continue. I mean, the ones that were burned and not been cleaned up, the one that is still standing is a horror story. I don't know what else to do. But something needs to happen. The same is true with 51 Shepherd Street. The same is true with 161 Peach Street. Time after time after time, it's the same report, nothing happens. I'm going to stop right there.
And Warren, I don't have any magic answers. I know that what we try to do is force the people to clean it up, who owns it, we tore it down. That's the first thing, because that way we don't have to have any more money put in. But if we move it, then we have to put another lien on the property. And I know that's not the answer you want, and I understand that. If beside my house, on the way to my house, I'd be just as upset as you are. But I don't know how we get people to do it. I honestly don't. I'll give you an example that frustrated me. We tore one down. We paid like $12,000 or $13,000 to get it done. The land was foreclosed on and sold. And if I'm not mistaken, we spent $13,000 and the county got their money first, and we got about $3,000 on that. And we lost about $9,000 on that. That's not an answer, but that's the type of thing that happens.
But there are two issues here.
Okay.
I understand the cleanup of the burned properties. It's a separate issue. Those remaining houses are another embarrassment. And that's because a junkyard is collected in front of those houses. And those are separate issues. Surely we can find that individual per day until that property is cleaned up. Do we not have that authority?
We do.
Why have we not exercised it?
I've sent him a couple notices about the rubbish around there. He has cleaned them up, and it just kind of fills back up with rubbish, so
Tim, I drive by that house almost every day. That property has not been cleaned up. When did we first send notice to him?
It was last year sometime.
It would take one day to clear that front yard.
I will,
Could we expect some action?
I think we'll start seeing that.
We can get on that, and I promise you that he is partially correct, because I went by there one day after they cleaned some of it up, and in 2 weeks, it looked as bad or worse than it did.
I know that,
So,
but
and
nothing is
again,
wrong.
until we put some teeth in something, and maybe that involves our chief of police.
I can talk to Tim tomorrow about this too, do a notice of violation. Did we go with $100 a day? Civil penalties is what it is. They only help so much. Shockingly little do they help, in my experience. But, I've developed sort of a way to approach it in another town whereby the civil penalties get up pretty high. And then you threaten to sue to collect the penalties and get an order of abatement from the Superior Court. You can offer to waive the penalty if they pay just the town's cost that it's incurred with Tim and me, and usually they'll clean it up. That's just something that I've kind of developed that works on. But you can have civil penalty issue, it's a daily penalty.
That's the problem.
What-
We have some looking house in this town.
I know that.
Completely.
I can read the news and the ordinance to read that up, but, some towns don't do it that way, handle it that way, they're very aggressive, and 10 days and the town goes and cleans it up. And it still results in having to, some kind of court intervention to get your money back, or a lien, or both. And, but if that's the direction you want to go, we can look at doing it that way. I don't know how much it.
I guess Tim get an estimate for ourselves.
See what advice you can give to our planning and zoning, so that the next meeting we have in a month, we got a much better report.
Okay.
and
Can't guarantee it, I'll spend time with it.
I also do want to add that you guys did approve, part-time help for me, so I will have a sidekick to
Yeah.
appropriate to
Information
a
from-
lot going on here, so, I'll have assistance with this kind of thing, and you will see progress and movement on all this.
Yes, sir.
Steve King, I want to thank Mr. Fatman for that wonderful presentation. That was the clearest one I've been coming to these meetings for 20 years, and I appreciate it very much. I also want to thank the roads department. I've been able to call them, and they come out and repair Wilcox and done things there, and I appreciate that very much. These budget work sessions that you're going to have at the depot, are those open to the public?
Open to the public. The way it works is it's an opportunity for the mayor and the town board to discuss the budget with all the department heads and division supervisors. You can come there and observe, and then the public hearing is June 20th.
Thank you very much. During one of the last few meetings, the middle school came up and Travis Arledge mentioned that he thought that building we want to get grants for should be torn down. So you need to discuss that with him. I hope it doesn't need to be torn down.
It's a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
One person could look at something, like my wife and I, we look at an old home, we might see opportunity, somebody else looks at it, they don't think it's not. I've talked with the architect that has the plans for that building. The foundation is solid and the walls are solid. The roof's got to be replaced and the ceiling and all that type of stuff, HVAC. And I really, based on the architect, we could probably make it a community building for around $1 million, which is a bargain compared to what I had to do in another community I worked at. We had the land donated and built a brand new community center at $2.3 million. So we could have a community center for a lot less, because the bones of the buildings are still solid. It's an embarrassment when you walk in, of course. We acquired that building in 2005, and the school district didn't do a whole lot of maintenance before they moved out. And so, but I think that's one thing we're going to discuss with the town board, of what kind of use, community center, whatever, I think could be a valuable asset to the town, so. But I agree with you, if you tear it down, you gotta deal with the grant folks, we got a grant in '05, and we can't ever tear it down until after 2028,
I think it's 2028.
So you do feel that that can be right?
I think so, and I love numbers to share with the town board, because it just continues to sit there and rot is not the answer. But I mean, any community can have some land that's already owned, just like the pickleball group over here. If you had to go buy land for pickleball courts, they've got a huge fundraising effort. Here, we'll just amend the master plan, they raise the money to build a facility, and they've got a permanent home for pickleball courts. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Joyce?
Joyce Kempton. I have several questions. The first one, if the fire truck can travel Carson Street from 176 to the Martin property on Carson Street, why can their dump trucks not go that way? One day I counted 10 dump trucks that passed my house, and they rev their engines, they bounce over the speed bumps, they make a terrible noise all day long, back and forth. I don't understand why they're not using the Carson Street, that actual street, instead of coming through our residential neighborhood.
Don't have an answer for
You
that.
know, like town dump trucks are also.
No, this is a private dump truck for the people who are building the house, and it's all day long.
It's like SNS grading or something like that. They hauled in at least 10 truckloads of fine black gravel.
And that's a heavy truck going over a road. And if you are familiar with it, you know, that railroad track, Carson Street, dips as you make that curve. Somebody's gonna wind up in the railroad, or they are going to tear that road up completely. And it's not been that long since that was paved.
Okay.
More questions?
Okay, yeah, I still haven't answered that. Not over Ryan there.
Nobody did answer me that yet. The minutes for March and April's council meeting, do we know when those will be up to review?
When I get them done, that's all I can tell you. Yeah, I've got the block almost done.
Okay. One other thing, I hate to bring this up, Tim, again. We have a person in our neighborhood who has a pool. They put an above-ground pool. They finally did get a town zoning permit. We were told they had a county permit. It was an auxiliary structure. I've spoken to the county building inspector numerous times. This person still does not have a permit from the county or for an inspection on the electrical for that pool. And I don't understand why they're not being made to get that additional permit and get that electrical done. I had to have electrical work done when I had my plumbing redone just last week. I was charged for the permit for the electrical person to come out and inspect all of that. Why is this person not being required to do what the town ordinance says he has to do?
I guess my suggestion, looking at it from, if you have trouble with a certain department here at the city, you go to manager or to the mayor or elected official, it's not being done. We can't, the county should have gone out and done the inspection.
The county does not come out until they turn in a permit.
Okay, well,
They haven't turned in a permit for the county. The only permit they've gotten was with,
the county manager, and I like to say this, like, going to complaining to the county manager, he's an ask the building department what's going on.
and they'll tell the same thing they told me. They have received no permit from this person.
I will forward the permit I gave to them to county tomorrow and just say,
What's the status?
Is it not the individual citizen's responsibility to do that?
It's in there, but once I approve the permit, I mean, what
But the
follow?
county should know that if they haven't taken a permit, why? And so they should go out and investigate, I would think.
Not unless I sign my name on a complaint.
Well, I think Tim's gonna forward the email on the information on this particular.
No,
I think that will solve.
I mean, this has been going on for months. This is months' work.
In fact, if you want to, copy me on it and copy the county manager.
I think that'll solve part of the issue at least. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
That's all.
Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, aye. Opposed, likewise, motion carries. We're adjourned.